led by Tom Ewert.
Yeah, we're going to Marion, meet on the dam at 7:45 or at Brahms and Newton if you want to carpool at 7:15. I was up there today just scoping things out, and the reservoir is dry. There's a lot of Franklin skulls out there.
It's dry.
Bald eagles, other things, sparrows and warbers. So I'm not organizing carpooling, so meet at Brahms if you want to carpool, or just meet me at the dam.
Which Brahms?
All right. For some fall birding. So welcome everybody. Tonight we have Destiny Flemons talking to us about birding and wildlife conservation and their relationship. Destiny Flemons is Wichita's new Farm Bill Wildlife Biologist for pheasants and quail. Her birding journey grew exponentially after taking ornithology at her alma mater, Mississippi State University. She continues to network with communities and stakeholders, hoping to bridge the gap between humans and wildlife. Destiny's passion is to stand with other BIPOC individuals to show youth that they exist and it's possible to achieve their dreams in the outdoor world. And we have a surprising amount of the outdoor world right here with us in Wichita, little parks here and there. So let's welcome Destiny.
Good evening, everyone. I know I'm a little soft-spoken, so if you can't hear me, I will be willing to turn on this nice microphone.
Control working.
You should be able to just talk into it.
Talk to it.
Maybe not.
Might not be
Is it on?
with the system not working.
It's fine. Can everybody hear me in the back? I'll try to project.
Yeah, you're fine.
Okay. All right. Well, again, my name is Destiny Flemons. I am the Pheasants and Quail Forever Farm Bill Wildlife Biologist. In my presentation today, first of all, I would like to thank Mr. Nolan for inviting me to present to y'all tonight. I wanted to talk about birding and how important it is to wildlife conservation. So this is me. I was born in Seattle, Washington. Both of my parents served the military. One was a Army veteran, and my dad is a retired Navy chief. When we went to Washington, then we moved to Virginia, and Virginia, I would say, played a good part into where I am today, because I would do fishing trips with my dad. My first aquatic organism that I caught was an eel, so that was very interesting to me. I thought it was a fish, and I'm glad that it wasn't electric. But spending the times at the dock with my dad was super, super cool. And then sometime, I believe at 5 or 6, around this age right here, I remember my parents telling me, Destiny, you remember that time when you said, I want to be an animal doctor? And so that stuck with me. And so I started to the seed was planted, and I started to kind of look at Animal Planet, Disney Channel, all the kids shows geared towards wildlife. Then a couple years back, around 2008, I moved to Georgia, and then I went to middle school, and then I went to high school called Arabia Mountain. Arabia Mountain was the high school. It's a STEM-related high school that was a part of my community, and it was built on a nature preserve. And the reason why it was very interesting to me is I've only been outside on that nature preserve twice out of my whole entire high school journey. And so there's definitely some work to do there. So my first bird connection was at the Houston Zoo. Literally, I looked on my phone and said, oh wow, that wasn't too far long ago. It was on this day, November 25th, 2016, which was the same year I graduated high school. And I saw the shoebill and the kookaburra. I was talking with some of the Audubon members earlier at Panera that the shoebill stork is probably one of the coolest bird species I've ever seen. And the kookaburra, just their call, it really just, I think that probably planted something in me to say, hey, birds are cool too, because I was really a mammalian type of person. So in 2021, that was really a critical year. That's when I graduated from one of the best schools in the SEC, Mississippi State University. And it's very interesting because this was during the pandemic. I'm glad and grateful that I came out when I did. My last semester was ornithology. I wasn't really interested so much, but I had to do what I had to do in order to pass the class, and I thank God for Dr. Ayers. He was my ornithology teacher, and so he was pretty hard and complicated on us a lot. We learned within that semester part, we learned 150 bird species that were found in Mississippi. And not only did we have to spell out the name, not miss any words, we had to know the genus, species, common name, and even some of the nicknames for all of these species. And so after I figured out, I'm putting a lot of work into this class, why not? And I found myself dedicating my weekends to birding. And so that's how it kind of geared to where I am today. When I graduated from Mississippi State in May, I decided to say like, hey, what am I gonna do after college? I wanted to be a wildlife biologist, but I did not really have a lot of field experiences, and so that was a challenge for a lot of undergrad students even today. And so I took a shot and went on social media because I do believe that social media is probably one of the best and free tools to market yourself and to really get what you want out of it. And so I remember putting in hashtag wildlife biologist. I came across a student who is now a PhD candidate at Tulane University, and she was doing a plover research. And I said, hey, if I took a trip to Louisiana, would you be able to would I be able to shadow you? I need field experience. And luckily, she said yes. And she's actually still my mentor right here. This is actually Kaya. That is my mentor. And the interesting thing about this part is that whole entire week, I was able to see how cool Louisiana had, their habitat was so rich. And not only did I help with the plover research, but I got to tag pelicans, which is super, super cool. For a long time, when I was an undergrad, I saw all my colleagues and all my students have all these nice wildlife photos, and I never really had them. But the minute that I took this, it was on every platform possible. Because I said, you know, a lot of people can have deers, but I have a pelican in my hand, you guys. So that was something I was very, very proud of, showing all 32 of my awesome teeth. But yeah, that was my challenge, was getting my foot into the door. So then, shortly after doing, and kind of in between that time, I became an environmental educator for West Virginia University. They do have a youth program called Science Adventure School. And so that kind of geared towards say, hey, I can be an educator, because one thing about science and one thing about biology is, are you willing to communicate what you've learned or what you're learning to different audiences? And one of the cool things is that's why I started my passion for youth. And so we went from education to social work, and I went to all these other jobs until I landed this one. That's when I got my big break. Actually, that was February 2021. Not too far away from that. And so I became a spotted owl technician for the University of Wisconsin-Madison. And the cool thing about this project was, so the spotted owl is native to California. And what we were trying to figure out is what's going on, how can we better conserve that? And so their project was looking at the threats that they face. Right now, which was very interesting to me, the barred owls are taking the habitat of the spotted owls. And not only do we have an invasive species invading a native species, but they also have habitat loss, because one thing about California is they will have a fire somewhere. And so that was pretty interesting. The way that we studied this project is I deployed ARUs, which stands for Acoustic Monitoring Units. They're like little green boxes that record the bird calls. And what we did with that research throughout the time span of about 3 months in the Sierra Nevadas, in different areas, in different points, is they were able to say, okay, if we heard a spotted owl in this area, then we can let the U.S. Forest Service know, and also the institution say, hey, we need to protect that spot because there's presence of a spotted owl pack. And so that just led to better conservation. The challenges that I faced during this time was camping. I've camped before, but not consecutively. And I was telling Mr. Nolan that I actually saw one of these guys at my tent, which was very cool. I'm mad that I didn't have my phone at the time because nobody believed me that there was a huge mountain lion right next to a big orange tent, and I was ready to go to bed. And another challenge that I faced is I was so hungry and so excited for this job that I drove from Georgia all the way to California for this job. And it was probably one of the best road trips I've ever done. And just seeing all the sights, I got to see the sandhill cranes in Nebraska. That was super, super cool. I went skiing for the first time in Colorado. Like, I made sure that I had fun on my way to here. All right, so now we get to Welcome to Kansas in August of 2022. So I ended up joining a team, a part of Pheasants and Quail Forever. So Kansas PF and QF, I think we're one of the best regions right now for for Pheasants and Quail Forever, because we have so many people coming from different walks of life that are really gifted, really talented, really, really passionate about what we can do when it comes to wildlife conservation in Kansas. So number one, we do have a state coordinator. We have 3 regional representatives, 1 GPGI coordinator, which I'll talk about that a little bit later, and 10 Farm Bill Wildlife Biologists, and 18 habitat specialists. So this is my team, and I'm glad to be around them. They're super, super cool, and again, they bring so much to the table. But I would like to say that you all are a part of our team too. Literally, when I got the opportunity to talk about, like, what would I talk about? I want to talk about how important birders are to the wildlife community. And so just the Audubon, your legacy is built on science. You help us, you're the on-the-ground conservation. I look at the citizen science. I think it's super, super cool. It's a good way to engage the community. And I think it's essential and critical to the challenges that we are facing for Wichita and at a bigger scale, Kansas. So these are kind of my little word cloud of all the bird species that we see. I really love the killdeer. I can hear them by a mile away. My auditory skills are, I would say, pristine. Now that I've, still from ornithology. We got the northern bobwhite, sandhill crane, blue jay. I love hummingbirds. Oh man, those are beautiful. But yeah, that's just kind of a snapshot of the bird species that we have. Over 475 species have been documented, and I think that's amazing. So a little bit, what I wanted to do in this part of my presentation is to gather what's going on in Kansas, and then we'll kind of focus on some things going on in Wichita. So right now, Kansas is known for the grasslands. The grasslands right now are one of, which I just learned not too long ago, they are one of the most threatened and rarest ecosystems in the world. And the fact that we have them in Kansas is a huge thing. Not only does it help us with the economy, but it generates $5.5 billion for the state in 2009. And so if you think about in the Wichita area, we're kind of more on the mixed grass and tall grass region. But yeah, that's the interesting thing about the grasslands is it's decreasing it's decreasing a lot. And when you have these type of habitats that are decreasing, you also have to think about the grassland birds and the other wildlife that depend on them. So here is sort of a graph of what's happening with the grassland birds. So the tipping point birds, one of the ones I'm thinking of right now off the dome of my head is the hen's-own sparrow. So we can see that between 1970 and 2020, there has been a negative 50% decrease in that. And then with the grassland birds, you even see kind of close to that. So why is this happening? We are converting our habitat into ag lands, and so again, that's habitat loss. Tree and shrub encroachment. I don't know if y'all saw my Ford Escape that says, show me to your cedar. Yeah, I learned about that real quick in Kansas. We do not like cedar trees a lot of times because, you know, they're very fertile, and they're taking up a lot of wildlife habitat, and not a lot of forbs are able to grow because those cedar trees take up a lot of nutrients and a lot of water, which are some of the things that most of our pollinator species depend on. And so I would like to say, like, although it kind of can be depressing to see that we're going on a steady decline and it's getting worse, it is possible to reverse some of these changes. And so one of the cool ways on how can birders answer the call to protect the grasslands is through GPGI. So GPGI stands for the Great Plains Grassland Initiative. This is something that you can be a part of. It's a Kansas statewide campaign right now. So these are the regions they have the funding cords right here. So our one GPGI coordinator, what he does is he talks to mainly some of the counties in these regions and say, hey, how can we better conserve the remaining grasslands? What can we do? And one cool thing about our jobs as wildlife biologists or just staffs at Pheasants Forever is we have partnerships with the NRCS, which is just the Natural Resource Conservation Service. We offer incentive programs that can say, hey, is it finances that are keeping you by? What is your conservational goal, and what can we do to help you volunteer to conserve this space? So I'm going to take another break, and I'm going to ask y'all. So I am the air capital of the world. What is my name?
Wichita.
Great, because I looked it up and I didn't want to be wrong. I was hoping for that. Great. So yeah, you're right, Wichita. This is actually what I call home now. I've been here for about a year and a half, and I see endless possibilities. But from a wildlife biologist standpoint, I'm thinking about what are the challenges that we're facing as an ecosystem. And some of the challenges that, or recreational things that we're facing, is the fact that there are 144 parks in Wichita, but only 9.6% is actually considered to be wildlife habitat and green spaces. And I will say, as a urbanized city, it is good to have some green spaces, and it's still good to have wildlife habitat already, because some of them might not. Some other cities might not have them. So the question would be, what are we doing to kind of make sure that we have a presence in those areas? So another challenge is the fact that the closest national park is the Tallgrass Prairie. The Tallgrass Prairie is probably, I believe, an hour and a half away. And so if we were to invite or expose some of these kids to, the greater outdoors, that can be a lot of bus fees, a lot of mileage to travel an hour and a half out to see that national park. Also, habitat loss due to urbanization. This has been a constant thing that we've seen not just in urbanized areas, but everywhere. And I wanted to ask y'all, is there any other conservation or recreational challenges that we're facing? Do y'all think of any?
Light pollution.
Light pollution, okay. I gotta write that down. Anybody else?
Drought.
Okay. Okay. Anything else?
Feral cats.
Okay. Yeah, I don't know if this is still true to this day, but when I was still in college, they were saying that feral cats have been the main threat to songbirds. So that's pretty interesting. Very sad, but yeah. All right, so how can birders answer the call to these challenges? So of course, with our partnerships, like Mark had probably said or hinted, I would say we are considered one of the most a wildlife hub outside of Kansas City. We have so many people in the same area, but we are not working together. So we have 2 Pheasants and Quail chapters. We have 1 KDWP biologist. We have 1 Pheasants and Quail Wildlife Biologist, which is me. We have a Ducks Unlimited biologist in Wichita, and then we have multiple habitat organizations like Bee City, Great Plains Nature Center, Nature Conservancy, Tanganyika Wildlife Park, and of course, you all. And for me, seeing that, I believe that everybody is effective, but if we work together, do you not know how many people I feel like we're missing people. And I think if we work together, it's an all hands on deck approach. We won't miss a lot of people, and we can achieve that conservational goal a little bit quicker. So here's a couple things that I thought was pretty interesting to consider was, okay, Destiny, you're talking about partnerships. What does this really look like? And so I kind of pointed out 3 good examples that came from my dome, which I was super excited about. So I would think that my approach to incorporating more partnerships, making sure that Wichita and even on a greater scale, Kansas gets what they need to conserve these type of habitats and the species that they depend on, is to create multi-use areas. And I just thought about this not too long ago, but presence equals pressure. Just like when we were in the pandemic, there were a lot of people going to these these nature trails, and it was very interesting, and that can generate money, that can increase the amount of connections that people are making with wildlife. And so again, presence equals pressure. So my first example is possibly the Audubon could host and assist bird watching sessions or habitat assessments with a wildlife biologist outside of hunting season. So I'm pretty sure everybody is familiar with Charlie Cope and the awesome KDWP biologist. They have a awesome program called Wichita, which is just walk-in hunting areas. And I was just thinking to myself, what happens to some of these areas outside of hunting season? And I was thinking, what if we got the birders outside and saying, hey, outside of hunting season, because we don't want y'all to get hurt, but look at the birds that are on that property. And one thing that I've known about doing work with private landowners is private landowners talk. They want to make sure, or they want to feel like their space is, when we put it into these conservational programs, they want to make sure that it's being of good use. And again, presence equals pressure. I think that would be a good opportunity if we can make something work with that. My second example is, of course, collaborating with other habitat organizations for rewilding spaces, native gardens. This past week, I came back from Austin, and I talked to a couple students, and she came up to me and said, hey, Destiny, I know Pheasants and Quail Forever has these seed projects or seed grants that are available, and we can create native gardens. We can create our own green space. We can also help manage the ones that are already existing. And last, my third example, which I'm so excited about, I've been sitting on this for a long time, is host a marathon race. I've learned, coming from the city, everybody loves to run. I don't. I do not, but I see so many people doing marathon races, and they're fundraising for amazing things. And being that, for me personally, I am interested in investing in our youth, because I do believe that when we invest in our youth, it is one of the greatest investments that will give you the ultimate and greatest return, because that's actually how I got here. And so we could fundraise money for birding equipment for some of these schools that might not have the funding to purchase these things. We can do it for recreational activities, equipment, or for maintaining the maintenance of some of these habitat areas or wildlife areas. It can be a whole anything that you all would agree on, but if we do something that is kind of common to the city, and we can bring everybody together, you know how much of an impact that we can make? We can do even better than what we did before. And again, we are all conservationists, right? But if we have the similar goal, that we can, again, achieve them quicker if we work together. And it's important to think outside the box. So here's my little discussion part. So what are we marketing and how? I'm not saying I'm the social media queen, but I've learned that some of these habitat organizations, or just organizations in all, they have to be on social media. So how are we marketing, or how are we reaching out to our members, and how are we reaching out to people who are outside of the membership? Is it through email? Is it through phone calling? Is it through flyers? What are those things? Also, how are we using all the tools available? So this is actually an app that we just came across for Pheasants and Quail Forever. This just launched, I believe, a couple of months ago. It's called Bobscape, and I talk about it a lot to my PF and QF chapters who love to hunt, because season is about to open soon. And I talk to them and say, hey, it's almost similar like eBird, where what you would do is you would download the app, and then they have Hear a Bob, which is, the bob white quail, the bob white whistle, and then it'll say, did you hear a bob? And so it'll pinpoint where you actually heard that bob white quail. Now, the cool thing about it is that you can see the map, but you will never see the exact place. So if it's on private property, you don't have to worry about that getting out of hands. But what it tells us is that is a form of citizen science. That lets me know, okay, if I saw somebody, when we get the data back, if I saw somebody in Sedgwick County that said that there is a bob white quail, you know what I'm doing? I'm going straight. I'm going to see in that area, even though I don't have the specific coordinates, I'll see where it's coming from, and to prove to other people who do not believe that certain bird species exist in these type of habitats. My next question would be, what are we doing to involve more participants or stakeholders? So one of the cool things that that was interesting is everybody's talking about diversity right now. And typically I've seen the shift of why diversity is important. I believe that it's going to be on all hands on deck. We need to reach everybody. And so how are we doing that? That's just kind of something to kind of think about. Are we just marketing towards one demographic or one certain regional area? We need to, again, think outside the box where nobody is left behind. So in my closing, again, grassland birds are declining, and their remaining habitat and what we have in Wichita is at risk as well. It's not just about birds, it's about us too. One of the cool things that I've been able to do is I'll share a story where I talked to my mom about birding. And somehow, she's like, Destiny, I don't understand. You don't like bugs. Why are you outside? How you want to pay all this money on cameras and binoculars and get all this gear, and you don't even like walking, like certain things like that. But she sees a smile on my face. On social media, you see the smile on my face on how excited I am to be about nature, and how I can tell you about the red-winged blackbird that I named my car after it because I love it so much. Or the eastern bluebird, how my hair used to be blue in my senior year of college, and that's how I remembered my test. That was very interesting to me. And so that's what birding did for me. That's what going out into the environment to me. That's where I was able to build a connection with nature even stronger than what it was before. And so just think about, it's about us too. We depend on it. Even study shows for psychology that being out in nature helps the mental health. And what do we see a lot now? We have a lot of mental health crises going on. And again, I say this, and I've been saying this since I've been here, is that there are limited opportunities here. I know there's a challenge with urbanization, but here's the one thing about me. I do not give up, and I am willing to do what I can to not only figure things out when it comes to a nature and wildlife perspective, but to bring the community in with me. that's just how I do it. I'm not gonna do it by myself. I want y'all to be a part of that as well. So again, thank you for using your voice to speak for those who cannot. That's kind of coming from, I believe it was Theodore Roosevelt, which is on my business card for speaking for, nature. So, yeah.
I have a question.
Yes, ma'am.
You mentioned marketing and media.
Yes.
Do you have an example of somebody who's doing it real well?
Ooh. I would say, this might be a little biased, but Pheasants and Quail Forever, their national chapter, they put in a lot of work on how they market well.
Say that again.
Pheasants and Quail Forever, they have a national social media, and I think their layout is pretty good. That's really all I can say about it. I know for me, consistency, looking at the numbers and making sure that you're posting stuff out, using hashtags is a huge thing from my personal experience. Yeah, those are some of the things I can say about like the marketing side. And honestly, for I would say, do we know who we are reaching currently? Because that can tell us a lot to say, okay, well, we might not need to tweak this part, but we might need to add on something else to reach that demographic that we are currently reaching and additional. So does that make sense? Okay. Yes, sir.
Destiny, you
Yes.
you work for Pheasant and Quail Forever.
Yes.
Is that the state chapter or the national level?
So it's the national organization, but we are filtered into states.
And so are you paid by national or by a state chapter? I guess my question is, where are the monies originating from that fund you and the rest of the workers?
Definitely the partnership with the NRCS. And if I'm not mistaken, I believe some of the chapters as well. They have a choice to fund us as well.
Okay.
But mainly, that majority of that money is they either do a 50-50 match with NRCS and Pheasants and Quail Forever from the national level.
Okay.
Any more questions? Yes, sir.
NRC stands for what?
NRCS, Natural Resources Conservation Service.
Okay.
That's actually on, our office is on West Central Avenue, right by the Casey's. Yes, sir.
You mentioned the Farm Bill Biologist.
Yes.
Is it the Farm Bill that we're familiar with?
Yes.
From the Department of Agriculture? And what is that person's role and how do they interact with what you do?
Okay, awesome. Yeah, so Farm Bill, mainly we work on the CRP, which stands for the Conservation Reserve Program, and EQIP, which stands for Environmental Quality Incentive Program. So these programs deal with ag land, soil health, water erosion, or just any type of erosion. And so they have all these practices. And based on your conservational goal, you would basically invite me to say, all right, Destiny, I either want some wildlife habitat, or even what I'm seeing right now is not a lot of landowners or private landowners or farmers want to talk about wildlife habitat because they're concerned about their soil health. I can talk about that too. We have, based on the Farm Bill, it's allowing us to say, hey, if you do these volunteer, we do have these volunteer programs that are available to address that need, and then also give you incentive payment for it. Does that answer your question a little bit? Okay. Yes, sir?
Do you have an average day, or what do you do on an average day?
Thanks. Well, first I start off checking my emails. I'm very adamant about that. I'll check my emails and I'll check the schedule because sometimes it can get busy. Right now it's a little slow, but I'll see what's going on in Wichita. I'll see, because I cover 8 counties. The furthest counties that I cover is Barber, Comanche, Harper, Harvey, Sumner, and Kingman County. So I'll check in with my SCCs, which is the supervisor district conservationist, and see if there's anything for me to do. A lot of times I'm doing CRP checks, just to making sure that they are in compliance and making sure that they have the basic wildlife needs for the plantings. Other than that, I might be calling Charlie Cove to say, hey, do you have anything cool for me? Because I have been turkey trapping, so that was pretty cool. But yeah, it really varies. It just varies on the schedule. Right now, again, it's slow. Sometimes, probably around February, we're probably going to be in the conference, attending conference seasons. But yeah, it can vary. Yes, sir.
Does Pheasants and Quail Forever, I mean, you mentioned turkeys.
Yes.
Does Pheasants and Quail Forever branch out into anything associated with prairie chickens?
Yes. Yes. We actually do have a biologist in Sublet working with them right now, working with prairie chickens, because that is in the area where they're mostly found, or in Western Kansas, and so. Yeah, they're starting to do that, and it's very interesting on the system for Pheasants and Quail Forever. It is not just pheasants, it's not just quail. They also have another division called Habitat Forever. So that's when you get your pollinators, that's when you get talking about other individuals that still depend on that same habitat, or the habitat that the pheasants and quail typically coexist in. Oh, yeah. Yes, sir.
How much of the regulations around CRP have been relaxed because of the drought?
How much regulations have been relaxed? That I'm not sure. I do know from the NRCS standpoint that they're trying to offer more assistance now because of the drought. I know the IRA money is coming in. That's what I've heard in my office. So people who have been suffering from the drought, there's going to be some extra support coming soon. Oh, yes, sir.
Yes, I understand about reaching out to youth and just getting people more involved is a great solution, but what can people really do about habitat loss? A lot of times, even population grows, it just seems like, what can you do to prevent just more land becoming apartments, shopping centers, any recommendations?
I think then that would kind of go into the advocacy side. I've been attending some of my district meetings where, and it's like small stuff. It might not be dealing with wildlife per se, but I've been involved in some of my district meetings for my district where where the people can actually, or local people can vote on if this apartment complex is going to be built. And so I've been there. So just kind of talking to the state officials. Sometimes it might not be in this very setting, but your voice matters as well. We just have to show up in other spaces. Any more questions? Yeah? Yes, sir.
How often is the Farm Bill redone? Because I think it's kind of in limbo right now, isn't it?
Yes. Yeah.
And that seems like kind of a volatile thing then, since it affects all the funding for the conservation.
Yeah, if I'm not mistaken, I think it's either in the process now or
Coming up soon.
Yeah. So.
And they can't agree on anything in Washington, period, so that makes me worry about the farm bills.
Yeah. Yeah. I see where you're coming from. I see where you're coming from.
Politically, I guess we need to question, something you can do is question how your representative feels about it. Hopefully in Kansas, they're okay with it.
Oh yeah, I would say like our Kansas rep, Shelly is our state coordinator. She is on the ground all the time, advocating for. She comes from I would say a wildlife standpoint, like a very strong wildlife standpoint. So she's able to be in boardrooms that we cannot. Again, Pheasants and Quail Forever, they have a whole political team where they are literally at every single meeting. And the fact about that I like is that they're pretty transparent. They're always updating us on the updates on saying, hey, this is what we talked about in this board meeting. This is the things that we talked about that we should be looking forward to, and these are things that we're going to do next. So I definitely appreciate from a political standpoint that we do have people in the right areas right now. It's just a matter of time on what happens. But there are people that are supporting us even today.